When you look at the moments in your life when Allah delayed something you desperately wanted, you'll notice that the delay didn't simply hold you back. It quietly shaped you. It purified the layers of your intention in ways you didn't even realize. Many people assume that when Allah withholds, it is a sign of rejection. But the believer understands that withholding is often the very first form of acceptance. Allah filters your desires before granting them, because anything that reaches you without purification is something you may mishandle, misunderstand, or even misuse. And Allah, in His infinite wisdom, refuses to give a blessing that will end up harming you spiritually, emotionally, or morally. So the delay becomes a cleansing process, allowing your heart to become aligned with what you're asking for. Sometimes we ask for something prematurely, expecting life to instantly bend toward our wish. But internally, we haven't yet developed the capacity to carry the weight of that blessing. And Allah knows this. He knows that giving you something too early is just as harmful as not giving it at all. So He slows the process down not to punish you, but to strengthen the structure of your soul. You may think you're ready. You may even feel entitled to the gift, but Allah looks at you with a divine understanding, seeing your potential in a way you cannot. The delay becomes an act of mercy, a pause that gives you time to grow into the very person who can handle what you're asking for. And if you observe yourself honestly during the moments of waiting, you notice a shift happening inside you. You begin to question your motives. You begin to ask yourself, why do I want this? Who do I want it for? Do I want this because it will bring me closer to Allah, or because it will inflate the desires of my ego? These are subtle questions, but the delay forces them out. It brings clarity. It exposes what is rooted in sincerity and what is rooted in self-importance. And that exposure is itself a gift, because it restructures your relationship with your own heart. By the time Allah finally grants the blessing, your intention is cleaner, your perspective is clearer, and your connection to Him is stronger. There are times when Allah allows the delay to separate what is beneficial from what is harmful. What you want may look beautiful on the surface, but beneath it may lie a hardship you are unaware of. You might be seeking a relationship, a job, a dream, a goal, thinking it will heal you or elevate you. But Allah sees the future that you are blind to. He sees the pain hidden inside the very thing you think will save you. And so He delays, not to take it away, but to redirect you towards something better, something safer, something more aligned with your long-term well-being. His delay becomes a shield, even when you don't recognize it as one. And the most profound truth is that Allah never delays without purpose. Every slow moment, every unanswered prayer, every door that takes longer to open, is part of a divine filtration process. Allah filters your intentions. He filters your circumstances. He filters the people involved. He filters the timing itself. And after all of that purification, what reaches you is not just a blessing. It is a blessing that is safe, meaningful, and perfectly aligned with who you have become. So the next time you feel stuck, the next time you feel that Allah is delaying your breakthrough, remind yourself that a delay from Allah is often the earliest sign that He is preparing something worth waiting for. His timing is not late. It is calibrated with absolute precision. And when the moment finally arrives, you will see that every second of waiting was a part of the wisdom that shaped you into the person capable of carrying that blessing with gratitude and stability. When we speak about divine delay, we often frame it in emotional terms: feeling ignored, feeling overlooked, feeling like our prayers are suspended in some unseen space. But the deeper reality, the one that requires a more mature spiritual lens, is that delay itself is a manifestation of Allah's wisdom operating beyond the limits of our perception. Allah sees an entire landscape of cause and effect that stretches far beyond your immediate experience. What you witness is a moment, what he manages is a lifetime, and when he holds something back, it is because the full set of variables surrounding that moment are still unfolding. His delay is not a pause in your destiny, it is part of the construction of that destiny. Often, when we desire something intensely, our vision becomes narrow. We zoom in on the one outcome we want, forgetting that the world around us is not static. People are moving, circumstances are shifting, timing is aligning, and your life intersects with countless other lives. Allah's wisdom accounts for every one of these factors. A delay may be happening because someone else's heart needs to change before they can be part of your journey. It may be happening because a future event needs to fall into place, so your blessing arrives with more stability. It may even be that the environment you're stepping into needs further preparation before it becomes safe for your soul. You see a delay. Allah sees a sequence. There are times when the wisdom behind a delay is hidden because it must remain hidden for your own spiritual growth. If Allah showed you the full picture, your patience would no longer be patience. It would be compliance based on knowledge. But patience that comes from trust, patience that emerges from surrender, becomes a transformative force. When Allah conceals the reason, He reveals your capacity. He allows you to walk through uncertainty so that your relationship with Him becomes rooted not in outcomes, but in faith itself. A believer grows most in the unseen, and Allah's wisdom often works in that space where your understanding ends, but His care continues. If you reflect deeply, you'll notice that much of human suffering comes from assuming we know what is best for us. We think in straight lines while Allah designs in perfect symmetry. What appears to you as a temporary obstruction may actually be a permanent protection. What feels like stagnation may be divine positioning. Sometimes you are delayed because what you are praying for would crumble if given too soon. Sometimes you are delayed because the emotional or spiritual tools you need to handle the blessing are still being forged within you. And sometimes you are delayed because Allah wants you to detach from the illusion that you control the outcome. Detachment is uncomfortable, but it is essential. Only through detachment does the heart return to a state where it can receive with humility and lose without despair. The more you trust in Allah's hidden wisdom, the less you find yourself battling the anxiety of uncertainty. You begin to see that delay is not emptiness, it is preparation. It is a silent arrangement of circumstances that you are not yet aware of. Allah's wisdom surrounds you even when you don't see the evidence of it. And that is the beauty of the divine plan. It is operating constantly, quietly, precisely, whether or not you feel its movement. So when life slows down, when the doors you are knocking on remain closed longer than expected, train your heart to say, "There is a reason I do not see yet." Trust that the one who designed your path knows exactly when each door should open. For what arrives through divine timing carries a stability and serenity that rushed outcomes can never offer. And remember this, the delay you question today may become the greatest wisdom you thank Allah for tomorrow. When Allah delays what you're asking for, it activates a process inside you that you often don't fully recognize until much later. The delay becomes a mirror reflecting parts of yourself that daily life keeps hidden. In those quiet stretches of waiting, you come face to face with your fears, your insecurities, your doubts, and your assumptions about what you think you need to be whole. Most people want the blessing instantly because they believe the blessing will fix them. But the truth is that the period of waiting often fixes you far more than the blessing ever could. Allah withholds not to create emptiness, but to create clarity, and clarity is the soil in which true strength grows. When you're forced to wait, your emotional impulses begin to slow down. You start noticing patterns in your reactions, how quickly frustration rises, how easily your hope wavers, how deeply your heart attaches to outcomes. These are not flaws to be ashamed of. They are human tendencies that Allah wants to refine through the delay. In that refinement, your heart learns a different kind of resilience. You no longer react like someone who is driven purely by immediacy. You begin to develop a thoughtful patience, a calmness rooted not in passivity, but in understanding. And that understanding strengthens your emotional core in a way that instant answers never could. Spiritually, delay pushes you into a deeper kind of reliance. When what you want is beyond your reach, your heart naturally bends toward the one who controls all outcomes. That bending is the beginning of tawakkul, not as a concept you repeat, but as a lived reality. Reliance grows when human capability ends. When there is nothing left to do but trust, you finally experience what trust truly feels like. And Allah uses this moment to build the muscles of your faith, muscles that cannot develop in times of ease. This inner strength forms a stability that stays with you long after your dua has been answered. Psychologically, delay exposes your internal narratives. Those stories you tell yourself about what success means, what failure means, what your life should look like by now. You begin to confront the voices that compare you to others, the expectations shaped by society, the timelines you imposed on yourself. Only in waiting do these narratives rise to the surface where they can be questioned, and once questioned, they can be rewritten. The delay frees you from the pressure of living a life borrowed from someone else's standards. It forces you to construct your values consciously, rather than absorbing them unconsciously. You become more intentional, more self-aware, more capable of distinguishing between the noise around you and the purpose within you. On a deeper philosophical level, delay teaches you humility. It reminds you that despite your effort and intelligence, you do not control the rhythm of your own destiny. And this realization, far from being discouraging, becomes liberating. When you understand that Allah's timing is superior to your planning, you stop fighting the pace of your life and start flowing with it. That surrender doesn't weaken you, it expands you. You begin to see challenges not as disruptions, but as part of the unfolding narrative that is shaping your character. You carry yourself with a new groundedness, a quiet confidence that comes from knowing you are guided even when you cannot see the next step. And perhaps the most beautiful aspect of delayed blessings is that they often arrive at the very moment you become the kind of person who no longer needs them to feel whole. By then, the blessing becomes an addition to your life, not the foundation of it. You've grown in patience, in reliance, in clarity, and in emotional depth. You've become someone who can receive without attachment and pursue without desperation. So understand this. Every moment of waiting is sculpting you into a stronger, wiser, more spiritually anchored version of yourself. Allah's delay is not empty time. It is transformative time. And when the blessing finally comes, you will recognize that the real gift was not what you received, but who you became while waiting for it. There's a profound shift that happens the moment you begin to realize that Allah's timing is not simply wise, it is deeply loving. Most people think of delay as distance, as if Allah is withholding because he is displeased or indifferent. But a believer who reflects with maturity recognizes that delay is often the most intimate form of divine care. When Allah holds something back, he is not stepping away from your life. He is stepping deeper into it. He is rearranging your circumstances, reshaping your heart, and redirecting your path so the outcome doesn't just arrive. It arrives in a way that nourishes your faith and strengthens your character. The delay becomes evidence of his love, not a lack of it. If you examine your own life, You'll notice moments where something you desperately wanted didn't happen when you expected. Later, with hindsight, you realize that had it arrived earlier, it might have created emotional pressure, spiritual instability, or even moral compromise. You might have attached your worth to it, or let it distract you from your principles, or used it to feed parts of your ego that needed healing, not fueling. Allah saw all of that. He delayed not because you didn't deserve the blessing, but because the blessing deserved a healthier version of you. Divine timing is always personal. It is tailored to your growth, not your impatience. There are times when Allah delays because He knows that giving you what you want right now would anchor your heart to the wrong thing. It would shift your reliance from Him to the blessing itself. And this shift is subtle. It doesn't happen with loud declarations. It happens quietly in the heart. You begin to think, once I get this, I'll be fine. Once this door opens, I'll be complete. And Allah, in His mercy, refuses to let you place your sense of wholeness in anything other than Him. So He delays not to deprive, but to detach. And detachment is one of the greatest gifts you can ever receive, because it frees your heart from becoming enslaved to outcomes. At other times, Allah delays because He is protecting you from harms you cannot anticipate. Think of how limited our sight is compared to the one who sees the unseen, the future, and every hidden intention. You see an opportunity, Allah sees the consequences. You see a person you want in your life, Allah sees the impact they will have on your soul. You see a dream, Allah sees the sacrifices it will demand, the trials it will trigger, the parts of you it may erode if given prematurely. So He shields you by slowing the process. You experience it as a delay. He defines it as mercy. And then there are moments when the delay itself becomes the answer. Because in that stretching of time where you are waiting, praying, questioning, hoping, you begin to form a different relationship with Allah. A relationship not dependent on immediate results, but built on trust, surrender, and presence. You realize that Allah is not only the one who grants at the end of your effort, He is the one who accompanies you through the effort itself. You find a closeness to Him during the delay that you might never have found in the blessing. Sometimes the wait becomes the very place where your iman matures. When the blessing finally arrives, and it will, in the exact moment Allah knows is best, you don't just receive it externally. You receive it with a heart that has been softened, strengthened, humbled, and elevated through the process. You accept it without arrogance, carry it without fear, and appreciate it without dependency. The timing itself becomes part of the blessing, transforming the gift into something sustainable, meaningful, and spiritually safe. So remind yourself of this truth whenever life slows down. Allah's delay is never neglect. It is always deliberate. It is always protective. It is always rooted in love. And if you trust that love, the weight becomes lighter, your heart becomes stronger, and your path becomes clearer. Because, in the end, what comes from Allah is always good, but what comes in His timing is always perfect.